Man, this show, Megalo Box Season 1, a show about a no-name underground boxer who lived his life throwing fights for dirt cheap to make ends meet. In a world where boxers fight with these exoskeletons called gear, we see the rise of a stray dog becoming a gearless champion. And with the help of his friends and allies, goes against all odds in order to fulfill his dream of beating his rival and becoming the Megalo Box champion. Alright, before I go into this video, like, subscribe, hit the notification button, it's highly appreciated. Now, Megalo Box is a story about Joe, at first an underground Megalo boxer, throwing fights in fixed matches alongside Pops, his manager, and both of them are scraping by, and as a fighter with no identity and no future to look forward to, Joe is just another stray dog trying to survive. And the show really emphasizes this with all the stray dog metaphors.
You think made it possible for a street mutt like you to—
A street dog wouldn't understand.
Busted ass gear, little doggy.
However, Joe, a stray dog, can't help but to dream of more and possibly become more than just a stray dog that he's always been.
I can't go back to that life.
I think it's worth mentioning that Joe is angry, frustrated, angsty, and like many of us, Joe is hungry for more. In the early episodes, these pent-up frustrations keep getting Joe into these motorcycle accidents of his own making, by the way, because he's struggling to believe that he can be more. Even with the news that Megalonia tournament on the horizon, he aggressively refuses to believe in the possibility of him even being on that stage. Bro just refuses to see it, and it really messes with him to the point that he finds himself riding his motorcycle on an unfinished road, daydreaming, struggling with his frustrations, and almost runs over the owner of Shirato Group. The Shirato Group basically hosts Megalonia, and once again, he crashes his bike and comes face to face with Yuri, the champion of Megalonia, or rather the catalyst to the creation of Gearless Joe, the future champion of Megalo Boxing. The dream of becoming more than just your past, more than your present, takes shape, not just for Joe, but also for Pops and Sashio, Team Nowhere. But with only 3 months to train, it's time for Joe to finally believe that he can beat Yuri and win Megalonia. It took a while, but the time came for Joe and Team Nowhere to finally fulfill their dreams through Joe and his destiny, and pay the cost for the fulfillment of his great goal. But the cost of achieving this goal isn't just on Joe, it's also on Pops. Megalo Boxing really puts emphasis on the fact that there is a cost to reaching and fulfilling your dream. Most of the side characters have their own dreams that not only cost them a lot to have, but put them in conflict with each other. I'll go into that a little later, maybe. Now, Gansaku Nanbu, or Pops, is a fraud, a hustler, and as I mentioned before, he is Joe's manager and eventual coach. Now, the show personifies Joe as a stray dog, but it also personifies Pops as a scorpion. That's what Pops has been before being forced to help Joe enter the Megalonia, but mostly to save his own skin. Now, Mr. Fujimaki, the mob boss, states this repeatedly, and this nature of Pops of always stinging and betraying those who need him leads to trouble for the team. How so? Well, Pops here had a plan with the mob boss that if they were to enter the tournament and reach the fight before Yuri, they'd throw the fight. But Pops never told Joe about this part, and it was a betrayal of their dream. But towards the end of the fight, after some stuff happens, Pops, in this fight, for the sake of Joe's dream, believes in him, and rather than stinging Joe like the scorpion he is, stings the boss in charge of the fixed fights. And that belief in Joe and his dream leads to Pops sacrificing his sight. his eyeball, so that Joe can reach his dream. Then there's this Sashio kid, a kid who meets Joe and Pops at the beginning of the tournament. Sashio eventually becomes part of the team. He too uses Joe in hopes of getting revenge for his mom and dad, who were betrayed and killed by the Shirato group. Pops even gave him a knife to go and kill the chairwoman, but he refuses to do it and rather puts his hopes and future on Joe. Though Sashio, a good kid, dealt a bad hand, it's interesting that sometimes that big dream of yours can also be someone's hope and future. Okay, so as shown in Megalo Box, believing in your vision and reaching that ultimate goal is possible, even when all the odds are stacked against you. But it can cost everything. Like, what do you do when the cost of failure is just so high? Well, according to the show, you sacrifice everything you got to achieve your dream. I mean, Pops at the end of this is blind now, but I'm not saying it didn't cost Joe anything, because he literally had to do the fighting gearless, while everyone else was wearing these crazy exoskeleton boxing gear. Now, a side character worth mentioning as far as overcoming the painful cost of reaching your goal is concerned, Yuri, the Megalo Box champion, initially gave up the dream he had of fighting a great fighter in favor of this lady's dream. But when he met Joe and realized the kind of skills Joe possessed and that Joe indeed is that great fighter that he shouldn't let go of, according to an old mentor of his, Yuri decides to remove his integrated gear. And this leads Yuri to days of agonizing pain holed up in a cabin in the woods somewhere. And he's screaming and everything, banging the door, wailing. The door even had a padlock on it. And this went on for days. And eventually, this decision, for the sake of his dream, caused him to become wheelchair bound in the end. And Joe, he reached his dream. The dream that he ran from in the beginning. He reached his potential and became the champ of Megalonia and Megalo Boxing. Now, I watched this show when it came out years ago and I enjoyed it, but I didn't really get it until this rewatch, and I realize now that, man, this first season was amazing. I didn't even mention all the things in this season that will tug at your heartstrings. I think maybe if the show came out in the early to mid 2000s, it would definitely have been a lot more popular if it came out during that era of anime alongside Cowboy Bebop, Samurai Champloo, Death Note. I feel like it should have definitely come out during a different time of anime. Log 7 complete.